We're live now. Morning! I'm so excited to have Tyler Lewis with me here this morning. She has graciously agreed to talk to us all the way from the United States about one of my new favorite topics, which is the AMD Ion Foot Cleanse. And I have to say that I was the biggest skeptic when I first started researching these foot cleansers last year, which I'm sure most of my clients are as well, let's be honest. But so I did a whole bunch of research, and I'm always willing to back myself and back something if it's going to make a difference to clients' lives and bring change and just help our health situation. So I started using it personally before I brought it into the clinic and with my family, and we saw major health benefits too. But I wanted to bring on Tyler this morning to talk to you guys. And Tyler, you introduce yourself just so we know a little bit about you and your connection with the AMD Ion Foot Baths.
So, yeah, my name is Tyler Lewis. I'm a holistic health practitioner from Colorado, and it's really interesting because I found my way to the Ion Cleanse system on accident. My son Donovan is 13 years old, and he was diagnosed with autism when he was 3. And it kind of started me down this holistic journey of wellness and how to help him feel better and, hopefully just give him a really meaningful life. And our doctor recommended these foot baths to us. And I have to be honest, Shelley, I'm with you 100%. I thought they were total garbage. I thought my doctor had lost her mind and that I was about to spend all this money. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is so silly. It'll never work. And I'll just quickly tell you that, you know what? This machine, I'm so, so passionate about it, which is why I'm grateful to talk to you today, because our son had a really, really amazing healing experience with it. And so I'm just going to share all the info with you guys today.
Please do. Tell us everything, Tyler. That's why you're here, because you're
Yeah.
living proof of the changes that it's made in your family's lives.
Absolutely. I mean, what do you guys want to know? Where can I start? Because honestly, I could talk about this for hours. I'm so, so passionate about this machine. I got the opportunity to do research with it in the pediatric population. And I've also participated and helped coordinate other studies that the company did. And it's just, it's like the more that I dove into it and really understood how it works and how it helps the body, I will never not believe that this is sort of that missing link in detox for our body. So,
And what I love about Tyler is how gentle it is on the body. Like the first time I got my parents to use it, well, actually, they used it once with me supervising, and then they did it themselves. And I turned up at their house, and they were like so relaxed. I thought like extremely tired, but they were super relaxed and just chilled out. And I was like, oh my gosh, that foot bath has like thrown them into a huge detox. So I rang Glenn, and he was like, no, 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 they're just so parasympathetic. And that's the feedback that we've been getting, is how much it resets the nervous system and how people sleep so much better afterwards. Just the wide ranging benefits, because it's just so gentle on your body. And it's not like taking a whole bunch of supplements, a whole bunch of pills, where people just feel awful and like their detox symptoms are just awful.
absolutely. And what you said is so profound. And so I want to start by kind of talking about why I was even looking for something that was going to help detox the body that is an out of the box tool.
Yes.
Because supplements, we're so programmed to believe that these are the end all, the be all, and that if you can supplement your minerals, get your vitamin D, get all your B vitamins, you're going to recover, and you're going to recover quickly. And unfortunately, what we're seeing in health and wellness is that there's a pretty large patient population of people that not only don't respond to supplementation the way we would expect them to, sometimes they feel even worse when they start taking a bunch of supplements, whether that's nutritional, herbals, or whatever it may be. And, I got to thinking, like, why is that? If we know the body needs it and we know that they can benefit from these things, why aren't they getting better? And it really kind of led me to the discovery that unless your pathways are open and available to move all this stuff through, whether it's into the cell to be utilized nutritionally or a toxin out of the cell for excretion, if your body cannot do that, then you're really going to be adding to the burden of the liver and the kidneys and the colon, even with supplementation. You're asking the body to process more than it has the capacity to do. So how do we get those pathways open? How do we get those organs pumping and flowing and boost that rate of excretion if we can't put more things into the body? That was the question that I had to ask myself. And, I really think that the ion cleanse is that answer.
I totally agree with you. So tell me, on a personal level, in your family, you obviously started doing it because of your son. Did you also personally do it yourself, or what did you guys notice as a family?
Oh my gosh. So, yes, my son was the first one to use it, and we had such a dramatic healing response. So, to give you an idea, when my son Donovan started, he was about 7.5 years old. He did not have any speech at that time. We had lost all his speech. And there was a couple of times throughout doing treatment for him that I thought we were going to get words back, and it sounded like he was going to talk to us, and then we would lose it so quickly. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Why does he have it and then not have it and then not have it? And then, he was still in pull-ups, which is diapers. He was in diapers at 7.5 years old and just really was struggling. He was a very unhealthy little boy, and he was very unhappy, and he screamed for hours out of the day, and he was just miserable. And so we started using the ion cleanse, as I said, on our doctor's recommendation. But I immediately noticed that he had more eye contact, which he did not have at that time. He was more calm, like you talked about with your parents. In fact, he was so calm, I didn't really know what was happening. I was almost afraid of it because that level of relaxation becomes so atypical to us in a world driven by sympathetic dominance that I was a little afraid of it. And so, but I knew something was working, it was helping him. And what ended up happening was in the first 2 weeks of using the system, my son toilet trained himself and he was no longer using diapers. And it was such a miraculous result. I didn't believe it. I thought it was that coincidence disorder.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I was like, no way this machine is getting him to now poop in a toilet when I've been trying for 7.5 years. There's no way. And then in 4 weeks, he ended up getting words back. He got 3 words back. He got juice, ball, and ow. And that last word, ow, was so important to me as a parent because that was him being able to finally communicate to us that he was in pain. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this machine is doing something amazing. And we just kept going. We didn't introduce anything else. All he was doing was his standard diet, which was taking out the gluten, the casein, the soy, kept doing that and just did the ion cleanse for about 8.5 months. And honestly, like our
Would you do it daily? Would you do it every few days?
Oh, yeah, no, I love this. So we started out doing every other day, and that's when we started getting the toilet training and started getting the words back. And then we had a couple of kids that were wanting to cleanse back to back, even though that hadn't been our experience with the machine. But we really truly believe that the human body knows exactly what it needs to heal. So we listened to those kids and what it was they were wanting, and we started doing this protocol where we were doing 3 days in a row, taking a day off, 3 days in a row. When we changed to that protocol, that was the game changer for my son. And that was when he actually lost his autism diagnosis.
No, so actually
Yeah.
your doctor removed the autism diagnosis?
Yes. Yeah. And after 12 months, our son was able to mainstream into a regular school classroom. He no longer qualified for any autism services. They actually kicked us out of his level 3, which is like the more severe level. They kicked us out of that program. And so he went from level 3 to mainstream education in 1 year because for our son specifically, his pathways were completely locked up. He could not detoxify his body, and all those toxins were impairing his speech and his cognitive ability and his ability to read and write. And we found out that my son could read and write the whole time. He just couldn't tell us. Yep.
No.
Yep. He could read and write the whole time.
Tyler,
Yeah.
so then now what does his life look like? Like, so he doesn't have the diagnosis. Is he still doing the cleanses? Like,
Yes. Yeah, he is. And I'll tell you, our son has a lot of epigenetic mutations. So anyone that knows about the genes, right? You've got the MTHFR, the CYP, the SOD, and all those the combinations of the genes. He has a lot of them in his detox impairment profile. And so the way that I look at it is that he was kind of born with this detox deficit. And I absolutely know that he needs his ion cleanse. 3 days on, 1 day off to continue that level of healing for him because his body cannot keep up with the toxins. So for him, it's a lifestyle thing. For other people, we've seen different results with that for sure.
How old is he now?
He's 13. Yeah.
So does he struggle? Does he mind doing it? Does he do it for 30 minutes a day, or how long does he do it for when he's doing it?
This was the kid that when we got started, he absolutely hated every intervention that we've ever done for him. And he was angry and resistant. And I thought, there's no way in the world he's going to keep his feet in here for a half an hour. And he did. He absolutely did. The minute that the machine turns on, it has this process of the electrical current that runs in the water. And that's the pattern that it uses, is what's communicating the relaxation response to the body. It's almost like a direct current system. And it puts the person into that parasympathetic relaxation response. So once that took over in my son, you could physically see him just go, and he would just fully relax, and he would sit there for the whole 30 minutes. We never had any issues with it. It was the one intervention that he's been able to do in all of his treatment without a fuss, without a fight, and he loves it. And there's actually days where, Donovan also has PANS, which is a condition that a lot of people also co-associate with autism and may even be the underlying cause of autism. And so there are days when he gets an exposure to a food he's not supposed to eat, or we go out somewhere and maybe someone's wearing too much perfume, or maybe there's some spray that's going on in the air from the environment and he gets overwhelmed, or maybe there's too much EMF in the building that we're in. That affects him too. And so he'll come home and he'll say, I need to do my foot bath. I don't feel well. And he tells us what he needs, and we do that, and it resets him every single time. It's just beautiful.
And so along the journey while Donovan was doing this, did you start to personally do it as well?
Yes, but I didn't in the beginning. I was so that pattern that we do as parents where we say, I'll heal me when I've healed him.
Of course. And you've been doing that for so long that of course you would.
Yeah. And so if you look at me now, and then you look at me when I started this journey and I first met the guys at AMD, you wouldn't physically recognize me. I was a lot heavier. I was very stressed. I had to have my hair so short because it kept falling out in clumps, and you could tell that I was losing my hair. And I was just so depressed and sad, and I was really anxious all the time. And I thought that I was doing great. And, I thought I was
the best that you could at the time, right? You had a stressful situation.
Absolutely. And, I started just kind of realizing this is such an easy intervention to do, and I can just do it right after I've done his session. And then that's going to be my half an hour of me time. And so I started cleansing just a couple of days a week because I was so toxic. I was very, very sensitive to all forms of detox. And I was scared of having that detox reaction, or sometimes people call it the Herx reaction. And so I just started out on a Monday, and then I wouldn't cleanse again until Thursday. And I never had any issues with it. After the first session, I had nausea and I didn't feel super great. But after that,
I'm trying to experience that this week too, that she had nausea.
Yeah. Well, and I think I really understand what that was for me. I was so toxic because I was making really, really poor food choices for myself as a coping skill. And I think that as all of those organic acids, all the ammonia, and all of the things were leaving my body, all the excess lactic acid, it's going to make you feel yucky in the beginning. And so once I got through that, and it only happened the one time, after that, I started noticing that I had more energy and I had more focus, and I was noticing my brain fog was starting to go down. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so, here I am, and it's been a 5-year journey for me. It's been 5 years since I found the system. But I do look and I feel entirely different because my body is healing, and I finally found something that's easy and works for me. And, it's just again, I'm so passionate about this tool.
Me too. And the thing I love about it is how easy it is. And I just have to say, because we're on Instagram at the moment, I love the fact that Dr. Darren's on at the moment, because he was also the biggest skeptic of the AMD Ion Foot Cleanses. We've been before I agreed to do it, I was like, Dr. Darren, you've got it in your clinic, and I know you're a skeptic, and you've gone ahead. And he was like, it was a game changer with my patients too. So I was like, there's all these doctors that are skeptics. Yep. We're all skeptics about it, but we're all seeing results. So why wouldn't we go all in? But Tyler, so being the skeptic that you were when you first started doing it, you obviously saw results with Donovan, but then you pursued it more. You started researching it. You started looking into it, or what happened for you? Like, what do you do when you probably tell Jonathan's friends' parents or whatever, and they just say, oh, but the water's going to change color. I've Googled it, and it's going to happen regardless of where the feet are in there. Like, there are so many, it's just the rust, like, or the machine or whatever it is. Like, what convinced you, other than seeing results with your son, but what really made you start to believe it?
So here's what's really cool about this is that I am an allopathically trained practitioner gone holistic. So I went completely away from MD medicine. I will never, ever do that in my life. I have no interest in it. But at the end of the day, I'm still a scientist, and I have to understand the mechanism of action of anything that I'm using. I have to understand it. And so I think the company did as good of a job as they could explaining how it worked based on the principle of that relaxation response. And we know that people can detox more when they're in that. But also, like, what's happening biochemically? What's happening at the cellular level? What is really going on with this machine? Yeah, I understand that the water changes color, and I'll talk about that quickly because it's important for people to know. Totally. Anytime that you're mixing an electrical current in a field of, when you add that salt in there, which is going to help boost the ions in the water, which you want, because the more ions that are in there, the more you have that magnetic charge to help mobilize these toxins. And we'll talk about that in a second. But that's going to happen. That's oxidation process. And so anytime we put metal into that water, the metal's going to break down. We're going to get that rust color, and we're going to get some debris from the plates. And I would always expect that no matter what. But when I started doing my own experiments, when I first bought the machine, I still was a skeptic, even though I bought it.
Me too.
Yeah, I figured it's got that 60-day money back guarantee. So I'm going to try it because it's the only tool out there that gives you that money back guarantee that I was used to in my community. So what I did was I brought it to my clinic, and I set it up, and I ran it with feet and without feet. And then I did it on 3 different water supplies. I did it with non-filtered tap water. I ran it through our RO water filter, and then I ran it through my Kangen machine doing alkaline water. And I just wanted to understand the physical reaction that was happening in the water. And every single one of those was entirely different from each other. And more importantly, every single one of them was entirely different than when you added feet in the water. Once you added feet into the water, that became the variable. And I started noticing that the water color would be darker, or it would take on different colors. I've seen green, I've seen blue, I've seen absolute. Yes. And that's that copper oxidation pathway. So you got these people that have excess copper that needs to be dumped. That copper makes its way through the eccrine pathway of the feet, which I'll talk about. And all of a sudden it's in the water, and it turns blue oxidation from the electrical current. And so, but I only see it with the patients that have a known copper issue. That's what's so crazy, because there's a copper bar in the array plate, but it doesn't happen unless it's from the patient. And so it's just crazy, the things that I've seen. And once I started to realize that the body was absolutely having an interaction and an experience with this technology, then I had to understand how and why. So, how is it that we're able to mobilize these excretions? And people want to talk about the detox that's in the water. This is what I can tell you. We know from doing urine analysis testing that the bulk of the detox that's actually happening is occurring after the session is over, and it's occurring for up to 72 hours in the body. And you're going to notice that through excess stool, excess sweat, and excess urine. And that's really the way that we should be seeing that detox happen, because that indicates to us that the pathways are open and that the body's doing exactly what it should be doing on its own. And that's what we want. When we start to see a dramatic result in the water, and that can indicate that that person has an excess level of toxicity, that needs to come out, and the body is using an emergency system called the eccrine pathway. And this is a pathway that's a lymphatic drainage system that runs down through those pores of the feet. And the feet have the largest pores on the body, which is a detox system through your skin. And so the body can start to eliminate a lot more stuff into the water field when it needs to, because it's using that supplemental pathway to try to help eliminate the excess toxins as quickly as it can. And so, if you test the water before and after feet, you're going to get some organic acids and even some inorganic toxicants in that water with the feet in it that you're not going to see comparing it against the baseline without feet. And we've seen this time and time again. And Darren Ingalls is one of those people. He was such a skeptic, and he tested the water, and they found, yeah. And he tested the water, and I think he thought he was going to like bust us. And then it came back that there was toxic metals in the water, only in the sample with the feet. And he was like, and and he became a fan. And so that's part of it. Part of it is creating that relaxation response, which is absolutely fundamental to detox. You cannot detox outside of parasympathetic because your body is not designed to do that. Your body is designed to go into parasympathetic, facilitate rest and digest, which is where we assign our toxins. This is where the body goes through and says, oh, that has to go, that has to go, that has to go. It tags it, leaves it with either a positive or a negative charge so that it can be swept out of the body through the pathways, those sodium, calcium, potassium ion channels, and let it out for excretion. And that's the basic premise of biochemistry and how our body detoxes. And so I understood that part of it. And then once I understood that, and I went back to that Krebs cycle 101 and was really diving into the whole like methylation cycle.
Hang on one second. Tyler, you have to say just briefly what the Krebs cycle is in layman's terms. Me and you know, but not everyone else quite gets that technical.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So the Krebs cycle is essentially a biochemical system inside of our body that helps our nutrition go in and our toxins come out. And there's also glycolysis is another. And what these are metabolic processes. And so this is everything that we do in our body. Our body is that machine. We take our food in, we take our water in, we take our oxygen in, and all of those components together run through the glycolysis cycle, the Krebs cycle, and these methylation and metabolic pathways. And it determines what we need for fuel, and it determines what we need for hydration, and then what we need to put out as a waste product. So simply put, it's just the machine of the body that puts in and then puts out. And
Perfect.
it's thank you. And so going back to that and realizing that all of these toxicants and excess stuff in the body is either hanging out with a positive or a negative charge, I started to figure out the magic of the ion cleanse. And it's so simple. It's so simple once you get it. It's the fact that in the water field is this huge abundant charge of positive ions or negative ions. And what is that doing? It's influencing those excretions, those toxins that are hanging out in our tissues, hanging out in our pathways, and it's helping to mobilize them through the pathways at a faster rate than what our body is able to do right now. Because you have to remember, we're so overly toxic in this world today that our detox pathways are slowing down. And our body is not facilitating proper detox all the time in some patients, specifically people that have chronic illness like Lyme, MS, ALS, autism, pandas. You can call it whatever you want at the end of the day, but we're all detox impaired to some degree, or we wouldn't be chronically ill. And so, yeah. And so basically what the machine is doing is, this is how I describe it. It's like the proxy to the body's natural detoxification system. Mm-hmm. We should be able to facilitate parasympathetic on our own. We should always be able to do that. We can't do that anymore. We're overly stressed. We're overly tired. We're nutrient deficient. We're being overloaded with EMF. All of those things are interruptions to the body that prevent us from going into active parasympathetic, where we facilitate our detox. And even if we can get into parasympathetic, those pathways are now running so slow, and we've got such methylation issues that we can no longer biochemically charge the cells to open up and move those toxins out. And that's a whole process called CDR that you can talk about at a later date. But regardless, right. But regardless, it's there and it's happening, and our cells are not able to open up as effectively. If we can't do that through proper nutrition and hydration, then, and that's the biochemical process, then our body only has one more protection, and that's electrical. The body can use electrical system to put a charge into the cell membrane and open that up and do it manually. It can fire a manual opening of the pump, and that's what the Ion Cleanse is doing. It's giving that relaxation response with that charge of the ions to open up the cell walls and move that stuff out where the body can't do it for itself. So that's kind of the basic rundown.
So what is so important about the cells? I know it, but like from, obviously we're all cellular beings and that's what we're made up of. We're just building blocks of cells. But why? Like, and because for me, it was really frustrating being a practitioner trying to help mitochondria health, because it's like you can't always get it into the cells. So what is the game changer with the AMD Ion Cleanse on a cellular level?
It's so simple, the mechanism. It's giving the body that permission to detoxify by creating the parasympathetic activation. That's the first step in overriding a cell that is so stressed that it's locked down and it can no longer open up to get nutrition in and toxins out. You've got to take that body out of that fight, flight, and freeze mode. And freeze mode is what people go into when they're so stressed and then they can't detox. So step one is giving the body that active permission to relax. And then step two is giving it that boosted rate of excretion to get everything flowing again through the pathways. And those are the ions. That's how the ions work in that water field. And this is why I'm such a fan of this foot bath in particular. And I've tried others and had not a good experience, is because it does dual polarity. Yes. Our body does not have one charge of toxin. It doesn't. We think about toxins as being a positively charged element, but what we're starting to find out is that there's tons of mycotoxins that are actually negatively charged, which is why cholestyramine was such a popular binder, because it's a positively charged drug and it would bind to the negatively charged mycotoxin and help carry it out. And then we've also got glyphosate, which is negatively charged in the body. We have a lot of organic acids and ammonia and things like that, creatinine, glucose, negatively charged particles in the body. And those need to be eliminated just the same as our positively charged toxins like pesticides and heavy metals and histamine. All of those things carry that positive charge. But either way, the body has to eliminate both in a very even cycle. And that's what I love about the Ion Cleanse, is that when you're doing your session, you're being exposed to positive and negative ions in an alternating pattern. And
that's
so
why too. Double bang. If we're going to do anything, we might as well do it really well. And you'll even see on the screen in the session where it talks about changing its polarity mid-session when it's going from the positive to the negative and it keeps switching in and out.
I love it. I love this process. And I thought to myself, why does it cycle like that? Why did Dr. Maroney, instead of just doing 15 minutes positive ions, 15 minutes negative ions? And I didn't get the opportunity to talk to him before he passed away, but I'd like to believe that what I figured out is accurate. And that's, and this is such a crude analogy, so please forgive me. But when you're milking a cow and you're trying to drain the entire udder, you're going in an opposite pattern of draw, chick, 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 right? And that's what we're doing. We're trying to get positive, negative, and move through this pattern that creates almost like a suction effect in the pathways so that we can keep them flowing. And I think that's the magic of the system. And it's just, when you think about it in terms of dual polarity, relaxation response, having an effective draw mechanism through the body, I mean, what else could you possibly ask for in a detox device? And it's safe. It's not invasive. You're not putting anything into the body, and it's totally painless. And you get to sit there and get your feet soaked for 30 minutes in warm water.
I agree, right? Like, it's amazing. And like, detox, like symptoms wise afterwards, what sort of things have you seen through your experience of what people experience? Like, it's pretty gentle on the system overall, but what sort of things do you see?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it all. I feel like I've seen it all. I've done this
That's what I thought.
clinically for 5 years. So I will tell you, rough estimate, I think about 80% of people who experience the ion cleanse have such a positive reaction to it right out of the gate. They don't get the nausea, they don't get the headaches. It's very gentle for them. And that's why they choose to put a system in their home. Then there's the other 20% of people. And this often for me kind of ties into our patients that have very acute Lyme. Lyme, people with Lyme tend to struggle a little bit more with their detox in general. So I don't see anything different than I do with other detox methods we use, but I will say that they get the headaches, they get that nausea, and they get the fatigue. And oftentimes with a good binder and some good electrolytes, we can nip that right in the bud. But that's the worst I've ever seen. And that's what I love about the system is the worst I've ever seen is nausea, headache, and fatigue. And I already expect that with detox. So it's pretty good.
Totally. And most people going into it expect that with detox because they've been taught, like the average client that comes to see me has had such awful detox symptoms.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
it's become such a stress on the body. It's like, no, that's not how detox should be anyway. Because now you stress your body out so much, you're not even detoxifying anyway. You've stopped any hope. Because we need to detox and rest and digest in the parasympathetic state. So that's what I love. And that's why when I realized that you could reset somebody's central nervous system and help them flush this out, I was like, this is just a game changer to help more people get better as fast as possible.
Yes.
Because really the goal is to get you better as fast as possible. But what about for the average person that doesn't necessarily think they're sick, doesn't think that like a lot of my clients say to me, I didn't even realize I was tired until now that I'm better. I look at my energy levels now and I'm just like, wow, look at the work that we've done together. Like I came to you with one symptom or whatever it was, and I've got my life back with amazing energy. So for the average person, why would this be beneficial?
You know what? I love that you asked this question. And I'm going to tell you, every single home should have an ion cleanse. And here's why. We are living in the middle of the toxic revolution. It's the chemical revolution. Everything you're touching, everything that's in your home, it's in your world, is all chemically processed to some degree. Even if your diet is clean, even if you have, all natural non-toxic products in your home, you're still walking in a world that hasn't yet caught up to what we're trying to do. And so those exposures are daily and they do add up over time. And chances are everybody at this point has at least a couple of variants in their genes that are not allowing them to detoxify as effectively as they could. And so I think, yeah, I really think that this is something like if you're healthy right now and you have no symptoms and you have no diagnosis, you're exactly the person that needs to be getting an ion cleanse because you have a unique opportunity that other people don't get. You have the opportunity of proactive prevention of chronic illness by managing your toxins. And so I would run out and get it immediately so that you never have to go through, hopefully, God willing, anything that other people are experiencing because they got so toxic before they knew that it was building up in their body. So I would say you're exactly the person that needs the system.
I'm so with you because it's just the reality of our life today that we are.
Yeah.
And like you say, like for me, clients always say to me, they ask me like, what does my water look like now? Like, what does the colors happen? And I'm like, I internationally travel all the time because I want to go to the conferences. I want to learn the best information to bring it back home. I also have an impaired MTH, like liver detoxification pathway. So I struggle to detoxify my body. So for the rest of my life, I'm going to be doing this cleanse. That's a reality. And I'm fine with it because it's so gentle. It makes me so happy, so relaxed. I'm like, why wouldn't I want to just add this in to my just general well-being protocol? But do you ever get to the point that you've seen over the past 5 years where the water like just barely has any color to it? Like for people that are regularly doing it?
Yeah. So I like what you said about adding it in as a lifestyle. I want to quickly comment on that. People that are dealing with already have a chronic illness, you're going to cleanse more often than those who are not. So, like for you being someone living a very clean lifestyle, you just want to manage your exposures. You could cleanse one, maybe 2 times a week and be fine.
Oh, no, I love it. I like doing it multiple times. I'm like, no.
I love it. That's great. But here's the thing is like the water is never going to be clear, first of all, because of oxidation, but also, as you mentioned, we are going to constantly be navigating a world where we're going to go out and we're going to get exposed to things. And so maybe for a few months, our water is going to look really good and it's going to look pretty close to what it would look like without our feet in the water. And then say you take a trip somewhere and all of a sudden you come home and the water's really dark, or maybe there's a lot of sludge around the array. It's very oily and viscous as your lymphatic is draining. And so I think that's the really good indicator is that, it's never going to be perfect water because we're constantly being exposed to stuff.
So as a lifestyle thing, once you're in really good health, once you've like healed your body, you're feeling amazing, like, where we got to with our health, is that like a once a week, once a month? Like, obviously it's optional, you can do what you like, but what do you see as best results?
Honestly, I just think like if you're in a great state of health and you just want to maintain that health, you could cleanse once a week and be fine. And the reason I like to do it once a week, and then for some people they like to do it more, is not even so much about the toxins at that point. It's about managing stress also with that autonomic nervous system and just keeping the body responsive to recognizing and facilitating parasympathetic activation. Because this is what's really cool about the system is like detox aside, this machine is a powerhouse for being able to help repair the body's ability to recognize parasympathetic and swing over to parasympathetic faster and for longer periods of time on its own, because you're giving it that signal until it remembers how to do it again. And so I just think it's
like that's been one of the biggest benefits for me coming from an investment banking world where I was just sympathetic, go, 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 driven. And I've always struggled. Like that was probably one of my biggest challenges. Obviously, I had all the physical challenges of getting my health back again. But no, but it was that real trying to get myself, like that was really hard work. Like I had to employ every strategy possible that I'd ever read about, ever researched about to get myself parasympathetic. And it always felt kind of hard. Like it was a challenge. It was one of my weak points in terms of getting myself better. So this, for me, I'm like, if I can just put my feet in a bath, basically, and I'm going to get parasympathetic, so easy. And like you say, through neuroplasticity, the more I do it, the more my body recognizes it, the more it just keeps becoming more and more parasympathetic. So I'm like, game changer. Like no more all these other things or that I had to do. Like I can do them while my feet are in the bath. So I'm like adding on all these different ways to get parasympathetic all at once, which is just my favorite.
It's my favorite too, because parasympathetic, as you touched on, it's not easy to get there. Our body starts losing its ability to do it on its own. And then how do you get there without facilitating it? And again, that's why the ion cleanse becomes the proxy. It just becomes that mechanism for the body until it can do it on its own again. And it's beautiful. It's such an amazing tool to have that. And knowing that there is hope out there, that if you're going to hot yoga, which is not parasympathetic for me at all, let me just say, I do not get stress-free in hot yoga. But if you're going to yoga, if you're being mindful, if you're doing your meditations and you're trying so hard to relax your body and there's stuff is interfering, then the ion cleanse is going to do it for you. And you won't be able to fight that process. It's going to override it. And that's what's amazing, is it's just so restorative.
And also, this is what I always say to clients anyway, it's if your body is stressed because of, symptoms like illness or liver buildup, congestion, whatever it is in your body, even if you do those strategies like hot yoga, you do your mindfulness and meditation, your body is still in the sympathetic state because it's stressed internally because your internal body is not parasympathetic. Like, so you're doing all these amazing techniques, but you're not getting all the benefits from it.
Absolutely. I mean, we constantly have things working against us just by the nature of modern society and the fact that we are coming to the game already toxic. And those toxins, until you get them, it's such a double-edged sword, right? Until you get the toxins out, you can't relax, but you can't relax to get the toxins out. And so this is why I think it's such a perfect system, because it does both simultaneously and you get the benefits so quickly. I mean, how fast did it take you to really know that this was a game changer for you particularly?
I like instantly I felt different. And I
Yeah.
couldn't really put words in it. Like it was a feel like I just felt so much calmer. And it was really funny because my parents had been away, and I've been doing this regularly. And when they came back, they were like, "So how do you feel different? Like, what do you think this is even doing in your body?" And I was like, you know what? I don't know. Like I'll do my lab. I did my lab test to test all my, because I had a huge heavy metal load. So I could do that from a clinical point of view. Obviously, I wanted the evidence. So I did do the lab test and I could prove it. But I just said, Mom, like I've had so much going on with work and just like flying around the world and stuff. And I just feel really calm. And she was like, Shelley, like you are different. Like we can just see it in terms of, it wasn't that I was a stressed out person. I was in my investment banking days, but it was just a shift that they could acknowledge too, because they were like, you've had so much going on. But for you not to react, there's got to be, and that was the only change that I'd made in my life at that point in time. And I was just I just felt calmer. I guess that's the only way that I could really describe it in terms of what I personally experienced.
I had the exact same result. One of the first things that I noticed before I started being able to like tackle food cravings, and before I started to notice that my nutrition was being more assimilated, my hair was stopping, like wasn't falling out as much. The very first thing that I noticed was that I was sleeping through the night without having nightmares and PTSD responses to my son's illness, because it was really dramatic for us. Like there were times when my son would break out of the house and run down the street from his autism, and we didn't know if we were going to find him in time before someone took him, before he was hit by a car, before he found a body of water. When you have a child that's chronically ill like that, and those things are your reality, you never sleep and you never relax. And so even though he was in a better place, I wasn't in a better place, and I was still panicking all the time. And being able to have that sleep was restorative for him. It was restorative for me. It was just amazing. And so, I mean, even if I was the only one in the entire family that got any benefit, and if that was the only benefit I ever got, I still would have been like, take all my money. Like it was worth it.
Me too. To me, it's so like we're time poor in this world today. You know, there's always different things competing for our time. But for me, those 30 minutes are non-negotiable. Like I make it happen 4 or 5 times a week, just for that one like just for the experience that I've felt shifting in my body. And to me, being somebody that loves labs, being the investment banker, the accountant, I like evidence, I like proof. But for me personally, I'm like, the proof is in how different I feel. So I'm okay with that. That to me was enough. You know, like I did the labs too, but that was also the biggest benefit, was just how different I feel.
I agree. I love labs too. I'm a concrete data kind of gal. And so I really like to see, anytime I'm working with a patient, we always start with detox first before we do anything else. And we always recommend the Ion Cleanse as our number one tool. And I like to do baseline labs on people. And so I'm a huge fan of these toxin panels where I can take a look at mycotoxins, glyphosate, heavy metals, and these endocrine disrupting chemicals. I'm always looking for like the 4 primary toxicants. And I can track the changes in these kiddos 4 or 6 months down the road and retest. And every single one of them that uses their Ion Cleanse diligently, we can see the changes. We absolutely see the changes in all the kids. It's so beautiful. And their symptoms and their behaviors improve so much that, like you said, I don't need the labs. I just like to have them as like my empirical backup.
Yeah,
but the proof is in the pudding with our kids, you know, and I know you're in the adult population, but when you have a mother come back to you and say, I've never been able to hear my child say, I love you until I started doing the Ion Cleanse. Like, I still get emotional about that, because that to me, as a mother who didn't think I was going to hear that either, that's everything right there. So even if the test had never shifted, but the child was speaking, amen. I love it. I love it so much.
And Kyla, it's funny because I've got a real stressed out mum at the moment because of what her child's going through with ADHD and all these other things. And so she won't sit still at all, the little daughter. And so I said, hey, why don't we just give the AMD Ion Foot Cleanse a trial? You bring her into the clinic. So she came in yesterday, and those 30 minutes was the most peaceful that the mum has seen in such a long time. And I got a report this morning just saying how her child was just totally different overnight. Like it was just so beautiful and so worth it and so gentle. Like the thing I love is that you don't need to worry about the age because it's so simple and easy and so not stressful on the body at all. But
Yeah.
on that note, Tyler, can pregnant women do it?
Oh, I get this question a lot. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw up my disclaimer.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. So the company stance is no, because detox in general is contraindicated in pregnancy. However, I won't say that I've personally recommended it since I don't work in pregnancy at all. I just work in pediatrics. But I have friends and colleagues who have used the system throughout their pregnancy because they really feel strongly that the benefit of that parasympathetic activation and being able to pull those toxins out of the tissues and out through the feet and the urine and the stool is helping to pull them away from the child, because we know in pregnancy that the baby becomes that perfect chelator. And that's what doctors say. And I don't know if you guys have this saying in the States, we have a saying in medicine where if you want to chelate a mother, get her pregnant, because the baby will take all of those metals out of her body and take them on as their own, which is just devastating. And so there's people that use it with the belief that it will help kind of pull that away from the baby, move it where it needs to go in the detox pathways. I can't speak to it one way or the other, but I can tell you that me as a person, not a representative of AMD, if I were to have another pregnancy, I would absolutely use my ion cleanse. You bet.
And then also putting you on the spot, so feel free not to answer this. And you, as an AMD representative, you can't. But just in general, do you notice a difference, like what the like you said, when the water gets really oily near the plates, like, and then the darkness and the foam? Do you notice like significant correlations to what's happening in the patient's body as well?
Yeah, every single time. And so, I don't work for AMD in any capacity. I spoke for them at conferences for a while, helped them do some research just so I could appease my own mind about the efficacy of the device. But now I don't work for them. So what I can tell you is absolutely, we see correlation. I had one particular pediatric patient come in. She was a 12-year-old little girl struggling with severe ADHD and attention issues, to where she couldn't even pay attention long enough to write a sentence. And her mom was just beside herself, and they were wanting to do a whole special ed program. And it was really, really hard for the family to accept this. And so they wanted to try everything they could. We started cleansing this little girl Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the clinic. And we did that for 6 months. And for 6 months, her water looked the same every time, just a little bit brown, little bit of stuff in the water, nothing key. One day, I'm sitting there with the little girl and her mom in clinic, and we look down, and her session's almost over, 30-minute session. The water is clear to the bottom. It's only yellow, and all you see is black metal flakes filled the entire tub, just filled to the brim. And it was, and we talk about these metal particles, they can come off the plates. So you want to be careful when you're looking at the water that you're not always associating that with excretion of metals. There was no way that this wasn't coming from this child. There's no way, because the plate was brand new. I checked it myself. It was totally intact. This was her metals finally getting to the point where she was able to eliminate them. And I'll tell you, after that, she had a huge dramatic shift in her attention and her focus that created a scenario for her not to have special education anymore. And she did continue cleansing. They got a system in their home, but just taking that 6 months to get her body detoxing well enough to dump the bulk of that stuff out. And we see people come in that have, candidiasis, and you can see that in the water. You can absolutely, yes. And I know it sounds crazy, but like, the water without feet should not have certain biological debris. We shouldn't see a bunch of oil slicks in the water. We shouldn't see big, puffy, whitish, yellowy clouds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you see them? I've seen them lots.
Yeah. It's absolutely elimination from the body. No matter what anyone wants to say, it's true. The eccrine pathway is powerful when it's wide open and the ions are working. You can see a lot of really amazing stuff in the water coming from the body.
It's really amazing. Like, it is so incredible. And I say to clients too, especially the skeptics like me, I'm like, take photos of your water each time. And so they are. And I'm seeing changes. And so even the ones that don't, like I had a client yesterday trying to convert all my other clients. She was talking to everyone because she was like, I was the biggest disbeliever. And she's like, 4 sessions in, I've experienced differences. But she's like, the scientist in me is like, it's not physically possible for every single session to look different if it's just the ion, like the plate with the water.
Yep. The water would stay the same no matter what. If the water source, if it was one tap, all the water should look the same start to finish. And it's the person's feet in the water having that experience with the machine that becomes the variable. And I can have one person be dark green and one person be brown and one person have barely any color change and it's just orange, and that's how you can really see that it's working inside the body. It's doing something very powerful.
100%. And Tyler, before we let you go, because we're so appreciative of your time, thank you so much. Do you have any last final words to wrap it up?
I just want to tell you guys that if you're on the fence and you're skeptical, like Shelley was, like I was, and like Darren was, just, go ahead and try it because you really don't have anything to lose. This is what I love about the company. You've got that money back guarantee, and you should absolutely see some kind of improvement or some kind of shifting in your body in that 60-day window. You should see that. And so, you're protected there as a consumer, which is what I love about it. And also just know that, detox, it's such a critical thing. And if you get frustrated or you get defeated with your healing journey, just focus on the detox and focus on calming yourself down, and you're going to have the best results no matter what you use. But I really think you should use the Ion Cleanse.
So there's one client, the real skeptic one that I just said about, she was like, well, I'll just sign up for one session. And that's what I said to her. I was like, what have you got to lose? It's 30 minutes of your life. You'll get relaxed afterwards and you'll sleep better. So why don't you just give it a go? And so then she signed up for another one. And then she finally was like, I'm just going to do all 12, like what you want me to do. And so it's like us, just give it a go. What have you got to lose in a world today? And just like you say, the fact that our feet have the biggest paws to pull these things out, why wouldn't we use it? It seems dumb. Like, why wouldn't we use the system, the organ in our bodies that has the biggest way to shift these toxins out of our bodies?
Absolutely. We should be looking at these tools that support the body's innate natural processes of healing. And that's how we're going to unlock the epidemic of chronic illness right there.
100%. Tyler, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing all your gems of knowledge. Thank you so much.
Oh, you bet. Bye.
We'll stop this one.